On the steep slopes of the Great Smoky Mountains, Alum Cave Trail has all the ingredients of a great story. It has a beginning at the trailhead, a middle at Alum Cave Bluff, and an end at the top of Mount LeConte. Not to mention plenty of characters along the way.
It's amazing how much stuff accumulates over a 2-year period.
There's Josh Shapiro with the National Park Service. He's been in charge of the restoration project on this trail for the last couple of years.
Of course, when you first come up here, you wonder how you're actually going to get all this work done.
Then you have other characters like Zach Beyersdorfer, one of the volunteers who camps and works in these grueling conditions to repair a heavily beaten path.
Kind of brutal too if you're not really an avid hiker, but it's well worth it.
But the more people you meet on the trail, the more you realize the main character is the trail itself. A devoted guide waiting to share some of the most iconic scenes in the Smokies.
I love all the views once you get to Inspiration Point.
All around here, you just sort of can lose yourself in the moment, and there's so much around you.
But after nearly a century of giving so much to others, this old friend needed a helping hand.
And a lot of it through the years had been eroded out.
So during the week for the last couple of years, the park gave Alum Cave Trail a break, shut it down to hikers, and brought in others to do the heavy lifting. Volunteers without the help of cars or ATVs lugged hundreds of pounds of equipment and generators up and down the trail, smoothing out the rough spots as part of a full makeover.
Put in the drains, come through and get rid of rocks and roots.
And one of the biggest improvements they've made here on Alum Cave Trail is this staircase at Arch Rock. It's a lot safer. You don't have to duck down to get through anymore. And all of this stonework should last until the Park Service's next centennial.
100-year standard. It's a good feeling, for sure, to know that it would last that long.
The change here has been dramatic, and it's really something else.
But crews say the greatest thing about these changes to Alum Cave Trail is they did not change Alum Cave Trail.
The same kind of character.
Having it look natural. When you're really working hard, you're in the moment, you're focused on this small piece of the trail, and then you look up and you just see it all. You feel a quiet excitement. The appreciation for this place.
A labor of love to ensure generations will still enjoy the company of this compelling character in a great story, gladly to be continued.
I love this trail. I could never get sick of this.
In the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.
These are the smoke masks that we were wearing. You can see how black and charred they are.
Surrounded by a ring of fire and staring into the eyes of death. With your last breath, what would your final words be? Krista Forden knows.
We're surrounded by flames and we have no escape and we're suffocating.
Trapped in a smoke-filled Park Vista hotel with her son and nephew, Forden secretly pressed pen to paper and prepared for the final punctuation of her life.
The kids don't know I did this, but I wrote down my son's name, his age, and the state he's from, my nephew, my name, and that I was the mother.
Identity, age, location. Forden then prepared for her last conscious breath as smoke overwhelmed the hotel.
I knew we only had minutes and that we would eventually pass out, and I was thinking, I was so thankful that we would pass out so that they didn't have to. Experience anything more devastating than what they had already experienced.
While she prepared for the worst, Forden never gave up. And smoke cleared enough inside the hotel to give local rescue crews time to cut through the burning roadblocks and help Forden's family make an escape.
So thankful for what they did for us. They stayed with us even though their families were going through tragedy and they didn't know where their families were.
It's all gone.
Forden fled through the flames and eventually found refuge at the wilderness at the Smokies. Her family has inhaled a lot of smoke, but they are still breathing. And although this was not their last gasp, if it had been, Forden knows what she would say. The final sentence of her farewell note prepared to part ways in peace.
And then I wrote that say we love you and we are cuddling, calm, and at peace. I can't believe we lived through it.
In Sevier County, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News. In the genius of art lives a mosaic of madness. An eccentric eye to find beauty where none treads. An obsessive personality to take relentless steps to realize a dream no one else sees. Those are the qualities that lived in George Selaron, an artist from Chile who lived in Rio's Lapa neighborhood. Back in 1990, there was no kaleidoscope of colors on this staircase. Just 215 dilapidated steps Selaron dreamed of decorating. And so it started, coating this climb in colored tiles. Sublime shingles beneath the souls of those who would marvel at this massive project. And originally, Selaron was basically salvaging these old tiles from construction sites. But as the project went on, people from all around the world would donate them. Now you have tiles from all across the world, everywhere from Kazakhstan to Cape Hatteras. Selaron also painted his own tiles, usually featuring a pregnant African woman, something Selaron would only say was from his past. He spent every dime he had on this project. And the climb to completely coat these steps in colorful ceramics took 20 years. And even when it was finished, Selaron still was not done. He kept changing the work he already finished for a living piece of art. He said, "I will only complete this crazy original dream on the last day of my life." That final day arrived in 2013. His body was found with burn marks on the steps he made famous. The cause of his death was never determined, unable to rule out murder and possibly suicide. Whatever the cause of his demise, the project he poured his soul into lives on, where this obsessive genius realized the potential to bring fragments of the world together and pave a path of beauty that elevates us all. At the Selaron Steps in Rio, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News. Well, people have coped with the trauma of these wildfires in many ways, including art and music. And a defining ballad of this tragedy and recovery may just come from 12-year-old Emily Hamilton, better known as EmiSunshine. EmiSunshine's talent takes this 12-year-old prodigy from Madisonville to perform across the country. But the night of November 28th, Emmy wasn't a singer or a songwriter. She was an evacuee trying to get out of Sevier County.
Come knocking on our door saying, "You guys have to evacuate, it's right near you." All the smoke and you could feel it in your lungs. That was really the scariest thing I've ever been through.
You girls okay back there?
I looked around me and think, there's so many people out here tonight that probably lost their families. And it just was heartbreaking.
Emmy was safe, but grief-stricken in the days that followed, as she and the rest of the nation followed the devastating story of Michael Reed.
His wife and 2 daughters, they were missing. Couldn't find them anywhere.
My wife called my cell phone and said that the flames were across the street from our house, and I told her to call 911, and I haven't heard from her since, and I haven't seen her since.
Reed's wife and daughters died in the fire. When the worst was confirmed, Emmy coped by composing chords.
I came up with this melody and I had a few words, and my mom said, "We have to write about this. We have to." The song's called Resting Place. It's pretty much about that family. He loved her kids, he loved his wife. Fire spread separated by miles. He held out hope in spite of fear, till she was found with her daughters near.
Resting Place also reflects on the resolve of those who survived.
Get their strength back and try to keep going with their lives. These mountains will always be my home. The embers took much away. Full of sorrow there is hope and grace still in these mountains. Still in these mountains are my resting place. Are my resting place. Are my resting place.
And that shift in the scale strikes a visible chord with crowds all across the country.
I know they can tell that it's about something important. You look out in the crowd and you can see their faces.
But for Emmy, the audience that really hits home is the one at home in East Tennessee, fraught with the devastation of unforgiving flames.
I've had a lot of people tell me that this song has helped them so much. I've had a lot of people tell me that you've helped me get through a hard time. We need to love each other, and we need to help each other get through all of this. It's really important to me.
And that warm spirit to persevere resonates in this ballad, Forged in Fire.
Till then, these mountains are my resting place.
It starts with a few flashes, then the whole forest joins in. And after a few seconds, the lights go out. Suspense builds in the darkness. Are they coming back? Oh yes, these lightning bugs work in unison to splash the woods at Elkmont with synchronous waves of light and dark for a couple of hours.
Checking the levels of Photinus carolinus.
It's right there.
Lightning bug expert Lynn Faust introduced the world to these famous fireflies
What do you see?
and says this year's lights are not as bright as usual.
For the synchronous ones of the Smokies, I'm seeing lower numbers.
Faust says the 2017 crop of synchronous fireflies only produced around half as many of these glowing insects as you would see in a normal year.
We all really kept saying, well, it's at 30 or 40%, it's getting ready to get better. But it never really got beyond that.
Faust blames last year's extreme drought for hurting populations in Elkmont and species all across East Tennessee.
The drought, I think, has impacted this entire area. Everything was struggling with the lack of rain. They did not get enough to eat, and they possibly dried out. The ground was hard. They couldn't burrow in. It was so dry, that was hard on these moisture-loving critters.
Faust says Elkmont is normally the flagship location to watch the synchronous light show. But this year, other synchronous sites in the Smokies, also hit by the drought, have outshined Elkmont. She says that's because Elkmont's fireflies were dealt a double whammy: the extreme drought and demolition of cabins. It ripped up the soil exactly when this species was making its way to the surface in April and May.
The timing couldn't have been worse. When the cabins were demolished was when the lightning bugs are at their most vulnerable. They're motionless, they can't move. And so by bringing machines, all the heavy foot traffic, earth moving at that point kills lots of them.
The soil is also especially sensitive because females and their eggs are usually close to the ground.
The demolition areas were heartbreaking in how few fireflies they had.
So this year the normal glow is dimmer. And suspense builds in this relative darkness. Are they coming back?
They did.
Yes. Faust says these beaconing beetles can bounce back in the coming years and bring another brilliant wave of bioluminescence to East Tennessee. And plus, even a year that's half full can still send your heart aglow.
I never get tired, though, of seeing the light show. Even when it's at 30 or 40%, it thrills me that each year it happens again.
In the Great Smoky Mountains, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.